Chapter 29. Lord Zakoji becomes a priest. That winter the snow came early in the mountains, and the year ended in clear, frosty days. I had much work to do, for now I had Watakansuke's position. Lord Akiyama was concerned that the stores in the castle should be filled to overflowing, since he was expecting that Iwamura would be besieged. This meant that I had to make several trips through the district of Ina, collecting taxes and buying supplies. Takatenjin Castle had not fallen, and none of the news we received from the army was promising. To prepare yourself for a siege is melancholy work, for it admits the possibility of defeat. The few times I saw Lord Akiyama, he looked harassed. He no longer held archery competitions, nor did he go hunting. Most of the time he spent in his quarters with his wife. Once I heard her playing the zither. I had heard that she had a very pleasant voice. Now that my friends were gone, I felt more bitterly alone. Even my love for Aki was no help, for her father seemed to have forgotten my existence. In desperation, I sent her a poem. The sickle moon has left the sky, Mount Fuji's snow is winter deep. I fear that spring shall never come, as all alone I long for you. I did not receive an answer to my poem, and when I sent a further letter, it was not answered by Aki, but a notebook from her father. He asked me to come to his room immediately. I was greatly surprised on entering to see that his head was shaven and he was dressed in the robes of a priest. I have decided to spend my last days preparing myself for the next world, he said, looking at me severely. If we should be spared, I wish to live in a hermitage in the mountains as far away from the world and its temptations as I can get. We have not lost yet. Katsuyori may still lead his army to victory, I muttered. I sincerely hope so, and I shall pray for his victory, but I doubt if it will happen, Lord Zakoji sighed. He occupied a room in the upper castle, and the paper screen was drawn so that one could see out over the valley below. Soon there will be a battle, and if Katsuyori loses, it will be the last battle the Takeda armies will fight. I nodded in agreement. If Katsuyori is defeated, we shall either die or have to make peace with Oda Nobunaga. That is, if he is willing to spare us, or he should find it to his advantage. And can we trust his word, I asked? Will we have any choice but to trust him? Lord Zakoji looked out over the valley as if he could already see the Oda armies marching toward our castle. I do not know, sir. Lord Katsuyori has not lost any battle yet. I could not help thinking that Lord Zakoji's attitude was not one worthy of a samurai. The priest's robe does not mean I cannot bend a bow or wield a sword if the need arise. Lord Zakoji smiled as if he had guessed my thoughts. I called you here to ask you not to write any more letters to my daughter. I wish her to spend her time in prayer to Lord Buddha rather than replying to poems from Prince Genji. The last words were a real affront, for they referred to the tale of Genji, a book I had heard of but never read. It was written a long time ago and was about the love affairs of a prince. My poems were clumsy, I know, I said, my face growing red as I realized that Lord Zakoji had read all my poems. They must have seemed foolish and childish to you. No, they are not bad, Aki's father smiled. If we live, I shall yet call you my son. Those who have not written poems in their youth will not be able to pray in their old age. I only ask that you refrain from writing until I tell you that you may again unleash the waning moon, willow trees, and misty mornings upon my daughter. I shall obey you, I said, and bowing I left. On the way back to my own quarters, I met Lord Akiyama. As I bowed deeply and stood still to let him pass, he stopped and asked where I had come from. When I told him I had been visiting Lord Zakoji, he smiled, and for a moment his features looked youthful as he said, "And how does this new habit strike you?" I think his head must be cold without any hair. He seems much concerned about the next world, I muttered, for it is unwise to laugh too loudly when one lord makes fun of another. He has asked his daughter to pray for Lord Katsuyori to win a victory. I have heard that she is supposed to spend her time in prayer. Realizing what this meant to me, he added, "Do not worry, the girl is fond of you, so she has confided to my wife. In good time I shall talk to Zakoji and be your go-between." I bowed and thanked him, being much honored by this proposal. Lord Akiyama nodded and walked on. He still wore his silk kimono, but his swords were in his sash. Although the winter was severe, spring came early. Suddenly all the brooks started singing as the water from the melting snow rushed down into the valleys. I was kept busy and spent most of my time with the men of the Konidatai and with my servant Yoichi. Without him I would have been very lonely, for I could talk to him without fear of being thought foolish, and I kept few secrets from him. In a small village 2 days' march from Iwamura, I learned of Takeda Katsuyori's great defeat. He had captured Takatenjin Castle, and this victory had made him rashly push on to recapture Nagashino. But there his army had been vanquished and totally destroyed. Of its generals and officers, not a handful was left. When he heard the news, Mordekaiser immediately sent a messenger to recall me to the castle, knowing full well that the armies of Oda Nobunaga would now return to Iwamura. We walked day and night, resting only when the men and pack horses were exhausted. As we entered the valley of Iwamura, I feared that we should see the enemy armies already encamped, but everything was peaceful as we made our way to the village. The frightened expression on the faces of the people told me they already knew. As we entered the gate, I left Yoichi to take the supplies to the stores and rushed to tell Lord Akiyama that I had returned. Strangely, he seemed more at ease than he had been for a long time. It was as if he had regained his spirit now that he knew all was lost. As I left him, he quoted a line from a prayer: "In the raging fire of this world, there is no peace."